I wanted to talk about, ladies, today was the importance of us and some of the considerations we must have as we start to become more visible to the world. And as educators, people look at us a certain kind of way and hold us in a certain regard. But I think we also got to be careful about how those things can be misinterpreted. Things that we do that is truly making an impact in the world can also be offensive or be looked at by others in a way that I don't think it was intended. So I know you and I have had several discussions over the past couple of days just about us making sure that we are a representation of the culture that we're trying to create here, which is we're about professionalism, we're about excellence, but we're also about just making sure that nothing that we do can be evilly spoken of in ways that people try to use against us. And there's been so many instances over the past several months where I felt this conversation was needed and this conversation was necessary. I think as principals, as leaders, no matter where we are, we have to really consider what is the impression that we're leaving on people as we speak freely on social media. As humans, we're emotional, right? The one thing I'm going to remind us to do and something to consider is step away from the keyboard if you need to, right? Step away from it, because when it's out there, it's out there. There are people who, for whatever reason, just look at social media from a context of, I'm just exercising my freedom of speech. But we have to be very cautious about that. And so sometimes you just got to walk away from the keyboard. You're upset, I'll go take a walk, do some other things. Next, don't rant about work, right? Some things we just can't stand work, right? We can't stand our boss. We can't stand what's happening in each one of our cities when it comes to COVID and how it's ravaging through our educational system. We got to be careful about that. And again, I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm just telling you to consider these things before you hit send. Next thing, be familiar with the district staff, your district staff's and social media policy. And I'm also talking to my family in the Virgin Islands, because although they're not in education, they're in law enforcement. I know it's the same thing applies to them. So let's keep that stuff as well in our thoughts as well. Consider separating personal and professional accounts. Most of us, I think, at this point, because we're putting out so much content, we don't always separate the two, right? And so just keep that in mind, is that if it is professional, let's keep it professional. If it's personal, let's keep it personal. But sometimes we may make the mistake of kind of putting both together. And once again, you may not truly like this part of the conversation and why it's necessary. But when I bring my other guests up later, I think it would be clear when I ask them the question on how those things have impacted them as well. The other thing, freedom of speech can be an issue. Let's just stop thinking, we got that right to say what we want to say. You're right. Everybody has a right to say what they want to say. However, other people have the right to interpret who you are based on what you say and what you post. Remember, what you post now could affect your future job opportunities. These are things we don't always think about. I think we got to sometimes look at everything that we've posted over the past several months or even several years and say, damn, you know what? That was me when I was thinking that way. I need to start considering what it is that I'm posting and why I posted it. Because sometimes we post it out of, this happened at that moment, but it may not be relevant right now. So go back and maybe try to comb through some of the stuff that you've posted in the past and say, is this really relevant? And do I want this to be a representation of who I am? What image am I building of myself with this content? Once again, when we talk about both personal and professional, you think that you can separate the two at times. And oftentimes it depends on who sees it. It's not always that easy, because as we know, there's some people out here that are pretty wicked that will take the things that you post and who you think are your friends. They'll screenshot it, give it to somebody else. And next thing you know, you're being brought to the carpet by those that you either work for or you work with. And then the last thing, don't forget that the things that you post can influence your students in their own online behavior. So it's, again, you would say, well, my students don't have access. But again, if most of us happen to have public accounts. And so our young people are on social media as well. And these are things we got to be very cognizant of so that we don't find ourselves in situations where we have to explain why we posted what we posted. And as Lace talked about earlier, there are young people that are hurting themselves based on some of the things that are happening on social media. So there is a level of responsibility that we have that kind of transcends what everybody else does. We don't have certain freedoms and liberties to do what we want to do just because we are school leaders or we're leading in our respective areas. But remember, like I said, that I just want us to walk away with what I got there at the bottom. Just do the right thing the right way. Has there ever been an instance where either through social media or through something that was put out in the public that made you feel like, I thought I was doing the right thing here, man? Like, why am I being crucified? And the reason why I'm asking you that, G Mills, is because I don't think there's anybody who's ever gone through anything as a leader that hasn't had that experience. And so I just wanted to, while you are introducing yourself, maybe just take a moment to just, share if there was ever an experience that you had that just didn't feel right based on how, how either the public or some people in particular received the thing that you thought was the right thing to do.
Oh, most definitely. What happens when you think about that is like, you can only do so much good before someone has poked a hole in the efforts that you've given, or they've tried to destroy the shiny things that you've built for young people. And so even when you're doing it in service long enough, you find somebody to say there's an issue. Like literally, I brought Shaquille O'Neal to Newark. He made a sneaker, the Shaq Attack, the Reebok Shaq Attack. It was a Brick City special edition. He bought Wingman, which is an artist, millionaire, lived next door to Kobe Bryant, to paint a realistic artwork of him on the side of Shabazz High School. And the city tore me apart from it. It was like, he didn't go to Shabazz. Why would you do that? I don't care if he gave the school money, if he gave the kids money, if he sent kids to San Francisco. He's not a bulldog. He shouldn't be on the side of the building. And so that $1 million worth of art, so similar to what you see with Ellen DeGeneres, right? Like something similar to that, was painted over because people were upset that kind of effort for children, and they loved it, weren't necessarily aligned with their belief system. So it's real, man. I think like this work isn't for the faint of heart, but we do it not just for ourselves, we do it for the children. And I think if we continue to keep them, at the crux of the work, we're going to always find ourselves in a better place, because it's never going to fail that somebody's going to see what you're doing as not good, but it's probably because of how they view things and not because of the good it's doing for people that you actually providing a service to.
You and I really know that the job, it becomes complicated after a while, and some people leave and they go on to other things, but you actually use some of the same hurts and pains and disappointments that you went through to actually excel to a place where you are right now. So let people know about who you
are. In short, I mean, I got the principal job really young. I was 27 when I got the job. Worst school in New Jersey, bottom 15% in the country. In a year's time, we turned it around. We doubled ELA scores. 4 years later, we got as high as 75% proficiency, math and ELA. I mean, there's a story out right now about that school, specifically Shabazz, where there was just some young people shot at outside the building, and it's in disarray. The enrollment is dropping, things like that. So we did some real good work there when I was there for the 4 years that I was there. And I got some big opportunities in the midst of the work that we were doing. So I got to basically work with a nonprofit think tank funded by your favorite billionaire, from Jeff Bezos to, Mark Zuckerberg, and the list goes on. And I got to travel the country, 7 different states, 8 different cities, 50 different principals, and really help students as well as their leaders figure out how to help them identify their passion and purpose in the world. So less about just like math and science, and more about like, if I want to create, a shelter for women, how do I go about it at 16? And that's the kind of work we was helping them do, and getting them funding to at least start to even see it come to life, to like just plant the seed. So those kinds of things were happening. And while doing that work, I actually met my partner who was out in LA, ended up coming back to New Jersey, and we partnered to open College Achieve Patterson. And so opening College Achieve Patterson is essentially a charter outfit here in New Jersey. And now that was 2017. Now in 2022, we have 9 schools, 3 different districts, and we're looking to expand. And so the wealth of knowledge I've learned doing that, from the principal seat to being able to be a chief in an organization, and what's really happening in the business of education is something that I would love for all of you to learn at some point, because you can really understand and begin to see like how, you know, your 24 hours should be able to be earning as much as you want it to, and not limited by statutes and laws that are created by government, or pensions and things like that. You should know about 457 deferreds, and you should know about the 403Bs and the matching, and you should know about owning real estate through education. We're talking about commercial buildings, 50,000 square foot buildings. You should know how all of this stuff works, and understand that even though you are working in the public sector and receiving these salaries, people own the buildings you walk into every day. And if they don't own it, an entity owns it that they potentially are earning revenue from. These are all things that we just need to know as educators, because equally important as the students we serve and the staff that we provide it for and create a culture for is our own families.
My son is the stand-up dude that he is. And so I wanted you, while I had you, to kind of maybe talk for a moment just about any kind of, say, negative experience you might have had by something that you posted that you may say to yourself, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have posted that one. Did you ever have any of those experiences while you were doing this work?
Millions of those. I mean, I've had a bunch of those, because, you know, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I stand on what I stand on. And I think for me, I think like the other brother Lays was saying, you know, I don't just represent my son no more. You know, I have an organization where I represent 3 other people that are co-founders with me in the organization and what it is that we represent. So my personal thoughts all the time don't have to be in a public forum, you know, and I had to learn that, because I'm used to just being able to say what I feel and feel what I say. And I know that's how I feel. So why would I not be able to say that? You know, and I had to learn, as you move up in the ladder and people look to dissect and find fault and find flaws in you, you know, and you have that public platform, people would utilize anything you say and try to soundbite and try to misquote you and try to do all types of things. So I've been a lot more conscious of making sure that my message is clear, so you can't transcribe it and try to discredit and make it to what you want it to say. Instead, it's very clear on exactly what it is that I say. And sometimes when I know that I'm going to have an opinion that's contrary to the popular belief or what's being spread, I still want my opinion to be known. You know, I don't want people to think that I'm just status quo. I don't want you to believe that because everybody is saying things and I'm just going to go along and get along. But now I just realize the way that I give that message has to be very clear and concise.
Was there ever an instance where you took to social media with something that you end up saying to yourself, damn, should I have done that? Or something that you might have been, been looked at or been trolled because of something that you said? And how did you handle it?
Right. I'm really careful. You know me, D. I'm really careful, you know, based off our background, our upbringing, and how we are. I'm kind of careful of especially when I'm saying something. I've kind of gotten tangled up, kind of going back and forth a few times, because I'm such a positive dude. And then you just get that one person that, you know, you'll post something and they might have the opposite to say. And then they, you know, want to be, you know, I call them internet thugs, you know, that sit behind a computer on their phone and want to just sit there and type, knowing that if you were standing right in front of me, you wouldn't dare say nothing like that to me or you guys. And I just had one today, you know, they talk about like the Instagram verifications, right? So now people are saying, yo, people are, you know, having fake verification of fake blue checks, right? So the dude was like, yeah, you one of them. And I was like, where did that come from? I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't bother nobody. So I was like, so I told him, and every now and then you just feel yourself and you just be like, you know what? I'm not going to be quiet today. I'm going to say what I feel, like in the words of my son. And I was just like, so let me ask you this. So it's fake when you actually go through the verification process with Instagram and they approve me for it. That's fake. And then he didn't have any words. Because, people will offer, give me $3,000, give me $2,000, and I'll give you a verification. And one thing that we've never done, and D, you relate to this 100% because you're my brother. We've never cut no corners. And Lays, we never cut no corners, bro. Like, even if it's going to take us a way longer time to get to it, but ain't nobody paying for it. Ain't nobody buying nothing. Ain't nobody skipping no corners, cutting no corners. I'm going to just wait. I got denied twice by Instagram. And then I tried it again for a third time. It took me about a year. And then they finally gave it to me. And that's that. So every now and then you get caught up in a little typing scuffles. But other than that, man, I try to keep it clean and try to keep it positive.
It's so interesting that we're talking about social media today because I had a little blip on my career in regards to social media, not really understanding the nuances of social media. So for those of you who don't know, this is my second book. I'm a contributing author. This book is in 5 years in the making. It's from educators from around the nation. We've all come together to write this book. And my contribution to this book is titled Blindsided by the Internet. And so in this book, I talk about my situation that occurred with the internet and how it became a career scar. That's what I would call it, a career scar, and how I learned how to move past it. So that's what this book is called, Fighting the Good Fight, Narratives of the African-American Principal Shit. And as I said, it's narratives from educators from around the world. We have the foreword by Principal Kafele. So you can see that. This book is also being used in universities and their leadership programs in order to help educators like us move in these spaces and places. And just like Dennis is always on his time, this book talks about that.